right, before we start, just thank again our sponsors, and turn it over to Renegade.
Excellent. Okay, I'm not very good at staying in one spot behind a podium. I kind of tend to wander. Anyone who knows me from Dallas knows it's like the ADHD Renegade thing. It's just what happens. So I'll try to behave. All right, I know all the recommendations are don't do a long intro for yourself, so I won't. Did want to cover a couple of things. Anyone who knows me or deals with me on a regular basis knows motorcycle, video games. That's pretty much what I do. Order changes on a daily basis. Drinking, I should probably have highlighted. Now, of course, being a computer geek, every time I tell people, oh yeah, I love riding motorcycles, they kind of already have this preconceived notion, and I think that's it. they go, oh, Renegade6 rides motorcycles now.
Are you on the back?
You know, I decline to answer that. Actually, I think that's you.
If you're on the back, you got nice legs. I'm impressed.
So, actually, so normal, that's me. That's what I enjoy doing. It's what gets me out of bed in the morning. Long ago, I decided if you hate what you do every day, you're doing the wrong thing. So, do that. This is my conveyance. This is what gets me from point A to point B. Unfortunately, my point B is usually like getting into trouble. So, and the nice thing too is with the line of work that I'm in, with just my day-to-day job, and because of my hobbies, I get to meet law enforcement, and we get to interact frequently. So, that's the wrong picture. I didn't show the one getting frisked. There's one where I'm shaking his hand friendly. This was like 5 minutes after when I asked him a dumb question. So, all right, but that's my intro. That's about as much as I'm going to go into. Looking through, good. No Chris Nickerson. I won't get punched in the face. Okay. I like compliance frameworks. Now, this isn't going to be like a compliance framework talk, or I'm going to tell you checking the box is really cool. I like them because they're a roadmap. So if you depend on it for security, like you're like, oh, hey, I checked all the boxes, I'm good to go, you're going to have issues. So I like to pull this one up, okay? You talk to pen testers, you talk to red team folks in general, everyone across the board, right? What's the best environment to test? The one where they're like, yeah, we're compliant, man. We just have the auditors in here, we're good to go. You're not gonna pop anything, right? Yeah, punch them in the face, it's all down. In the write-up, you see that I mentioned the fourth, the whole magic quadrant, fourth, quarter, all these things. So I worked for a pretty good company for a while, and we'd have vendors in all the time, like constantly. Like, oh, buy our stuff. You have a lot of money, and we like money, so you give money, we'll give you a box. And it was like, okay, that's pretty cool. What's your pizza box do this week? Oh, it does X, Y, Z, but we're the best at X, Y, Z. Okay, maybe I need ABC, whatever. So eventually I got to the point where I said, you know what, I need a good analogy. I need to explain to people why buying fourth quadrant isn't necessarily the best thing out there. So came up with this one. This is actually good having the follow on top because I love to eat. You wouldn't know it, baggy clothes. I realized very quickly that one of the best analogies is you can have the best products in the world, right? You can have the best ingredients, you can have top-notch everything, but if you don't know what the hell you're doing, wow, that's what you're gonna end up with. You can give me truffles, you can give me like all this like grade A stuff. I'm no chef, okay? I'll tell you right now, I can mess up like all your fancy cheeses and you're gonna get mac and cheese. That's what you're gonna get. It's not cool. So the analogy is really that a framework is a recipe. That's what you're doing. You're following a recipe, right? You're doing X, you're doing Y, you're doing Z. You bought this device and you implemented it. You bought this device, you implemented it. Not necessarily well, but you followed a recipe. Well, chefs follow recipes, right? But in no way does following a recipe make you this, okay? You're not. So you follow the recipe, but you're not a chef. You make a better dish than if you follow recipes at all. No recipe at all. A chef can sit there, read a recipe, and make something real. And I make the argument that's what a compliance framework is. So you take a compliance framework, you use that as the basis, and you make something good out of it. Okay? You just can't follow it directly. You have to kind of switch it up a little to fit your taste and fit what you're doing. So if you're following any of the major compliance frameworks, right, any of them, right off like PCI, anything, there's certain key devices you're going to have, right, because you have to check the box. So even if you just check every box, there's a couple of toys that are going to be on the network that someone like me can come in and use. And really what the basis of this is, okay, everyone, stop buying crap. Stop buying more tools. Take the tools you have because of compliance or because you actually just realized you need these things to make an effective security program. Use what you have, all right? It's kind of like the old biker thing, ride what you bring, And so I like this because you're gonna have your IDS. Maybe you have an IPS, maybe not. Maybe your environment that doesn't fit well. You're gonna have your firewall, you're gonna have AV, right? Everyone's got AV, and don't worry, we'll talk about AV. AV. You're gonna have logging. Just about every compliance framework requires you to have a logging solution. What you do with it is up to you, okay? And your HIDs, your HIPs, you may have them, you may not. These can actually be something as easy as a tripwire, just watching a couple of folders on your system. Or it can be an honest-to-goodness HIDs solution, like something from the CAFI, e-policy orchestrator, right? What I'm going to go into is what you're going to do with that HIDs. What are you going to look for? And how are you going to use some of these other products on this list to actually create some security on your network and do some stuff you may not have even realized you could. And that's, pretty much the takeaway of what I'm hoping here, you walk out of here, you'll go, dude, I have all this stuff on my network. I can do something with it. What?
Will you say that a lot of these products we already have the default configurations that the vendors provide to us, or that the vendors' implementation group, their consultancy, their people we hire to implement, don't necessarily implement them or find that they're maybe fall short?
You can take all the best ingredients in the world and turn out Swiss cheese. You can buy your number one fourth quadrant. If you don't tune it to your environment, I don't care who implemented it, but if you don't tune it, what's really the point? If you don't use it effectively, what's the point? And so, good segue. And so this is what we're going to talk about is, here's a couple of things you can do. In hindsight, I could have called this talk like stupid network tricks, and just capitalized on that, but I wasn't completely sober when I submitted, So right up front, because AV gets pounded so often, I am going to mention AV, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why it's not cool, but it's not an AV bashing talk. Okay, we're going to move beyond why AV sucks. We know AV is not the best, but AV meets a purpose. It does what it's supposed to, as long as you remember what it's supposed to do, which is you can't base an incident response team policy off of it. It's there to catch the low-hanging fruit. Okay. So what we're going to do, I'm not going to replace your AV solutions. I'm not saying that detecting malware, my idea, is going to be like so inherently better that you can fire McAfee. Okay, it's not for that. It's just saying, hey, we're going to work around. Okay. So also, I wish we could. We're not going to solve diabetes, insomnia, or anything else. Okay. But I'm going to show you how you can maybe sleep a little bit better at night. Okay. And that for me is the big thing. So originally, what kind of sent me down this path? I'm a busy person. I don't have a lot of time to mess around with stupid stuff. And to me, dealing with AV alerts, trying to find root cause, I don't have time for dumb, okay? So I always thought this picture summed it up pretty nicely. I'm busy, I got stuff to do, I don't need your issues, I don't need your problems. So what I do is I do a lot of incident response, and I'll come up with this as a, hey, here's how to make your incident response go a little faster, a little bit smoother, because a lot of times you look for that needle in the haystack. Where are you going to look? You got to go to these logs. You got to look for this. On your environment, this type of alert may be totally natural. Where on my environment, that alert, red flags all day. So when you walk out of here, like I said, some of this stuff, I'm hoping you'll just walk right out and go, this is what I'm going to do from now on. It's not easy. you're going to do some work. You're going to review a lot of logs. For a long couple of months, I think everybody was calling me log lover. I think at one of the groups that I go to, they played the Ren and Stimpy log song for me because every time it's logs. I love logs, 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 and they're so sick of being logs. But you need logs, and you need logs from everything. Now, a lot of people are like, well, I have this SIM product, I have whatever. Guess what? I have a massive SIM. It's ArcSight. It's ridiculously large. It doesn't do what I need. It alerts me on stuff, it shows me canned stuff, it does neat things, but it's not customizable to what I need out of it. So you have to be prepared to parse those logs yourself. And there's a lot of logs. Last count, the script that I'm running through and the logs that I'm parsing, it's not uncommon for me to hit about 10 gigs. So I have to parse through about 10 gigs worth of data. Why? Well, AV sucks, right? We know this. No, really, AV sucks. AV is not designed, nor is it going to catch some of the things that we need to be alerted to on a network. What are pen testers, red team people always say? I took the payload, I fed it through, I masked it, I took the virus total, and once it stopped being detected, I went ahead and used it in my pen test, right? Okay, yeah, that should be the key right there. We can't depend on AV. But a few while back, I think AV also gets slammed for some stuff that they shouldn't. When you had the whole New York Times getting compromised, right? They blame McAfee or they blame Symantec. Dude, that's your fault. You got compromised. You didn't pay attention to your systems. You didn't enforce baselines. You didn't react to alerts. Your incident response didn't do X, Y, Z. How are you going to blame AV? AV is not the driver for that. AV finds simple malware and does a little bit of logic, but not much. So we have to do the actual thinking and find those compromises. The other issue is AV isn't going to pick up system tools. When you get attacked, the average attacker isn't going to dump all their special tools onto your system. Why? They don't want them compromised. They want to use them. Plus, when you're looking at network traffic for your network, an environment you should know, you're going to notice odd traffic. You're going to see weird tools, right? How many people are going to pick up, Microsoft's RDP, right? You have Windows servers. Someone's logging into Windows servers. You have RDP traffic on your network. If I compromise your system, why the heck am I going to use some exotic cryptcat library when I can fire up Microsoft's RDP and I can blend in with all the rest of the tools and all the rest of the traffic already on your network? I don't want to call attention to myself. AV's never going to detect that you've been compromised and register these bad RDP connections. Never was meant to. So to expect that out of it is just unfair. I did mention, right, AV cannot be counted on. Okay. So that's my AV thing of, like I said, I'm not trying to replace it. I'm not unfairly bashing it. But at the same time, defend it a little bit, and you have to be realistic in your expectations of it. So let's talk an attack, right? Red team people, they have a set rhythm they go through. Compromises, everything, it follows a set pattern, okay? And it's that pattern that actually drives a lot of what I do and a lot of what I'm looking at. You're going to have a reconnaissance phase. You're not going to just start telnetting to boxes and hope that there's a telnet, right? You're going to know where there's telnet. Okay, this day and age, we hope nobody's running telnet. But you know they are. So the recon phase is not to be overlooked. And why? Because recon is going to be just before scanning. Right? Recon the network, find out who their people are, what their network ranges are. Right? It doesn't do no good to scan Google for open ports if it's Microsoft you're after. So you better at least know the right IP range. Obviously, from there we can expect to see scanning. Eventually, we should see some exploits against systems, right? And then they're going to want to keep access, and then they're going to try to cover their tracks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about these different phases and what that means for us and what we can do with it. So recon is kind of hard to detect. You can't see what people are Googling, well, unless you're Google and then you just track it, right? But as a general Joe myself, I don't know if somebody Googled me or not. I have no idea. It doesn't pop up a little Twitter thing and say, hey, you have a new follower. I wish you did, but that could also get a little annoying. Web searches, I can't do a lot about that. What I can do is I can set up alerting for DNS zone transfers, right? Why are my DNS records being transferred out of my network? If I'm not partnered with you, I don't want you to know where my boxes are. So I can monitor for that. AXFR and IXFR, I added that. That was a favorite trick of mine for a long time. In IXFR, if you're not familiar, is the incremental. You tell the server, hey, we've exchanged data once before, but my cached copies from 1903, could you just send me your updates? Newsflash, if the last time you exchanged DNS zone records was 1903, essentially your update is going to be everything in their DNS record. That trick actually does work. So I alert on that. I want to know if someone is trying to transfer. And then of course, looking for the reverse lookups. If you have a lot of DNS entries coming in and they're trying to enumerate your systems, you'll see that in the logs. You want to alert on that. And for just, it kills me. You can find and brute force a lot of the systems on a network with some really dumb tricks, i.e. the company's name with DC at the end, DNS at the end, or as you see, mythological deities, right? I'm sure everyone here knows they worked for a company and they had like a machine named Thor, or yeah, it's like, oh, seriously, come on. If I find one more Gandalf, I'm just gonna like nuke it, okay? So, basic monitoring is what we're gonna do here. We have to have logs to review the logs. So that's my thing on, just you gotta make sure you're logging, because without it, you're gonna have a hard time detecting the recon phase. And also, for all of you people who have SIMs or whatever, for the love of any higher power that you do like, red, yellow, orange, green, all that, yeah, Skittles and jelly beans, that's all it's for, okay? It may say, well, we only had a yellow attack. It doesn't matter if I just took your entire DMZ infrastructure, whatever, you have data leakage, whatever. And I see it a lot in ArcSight. People get hung up on the colors and they don't look at the impact of what's actually happening. So, all right. Detecting scans. I actually had a guy last week who told me it wasn't worth the bandwidth of trying to detect scans. What? If you're being FTP brute forced from China, I think that's worth detecting. I don't do business with anyone in China. I kind of want to know that my FTP servers are being brute forced, or that I'm being scanned, or port scans, things like that. So I think it is absolutely worth having those logs, and we can visualize those logs to get some added benefit out of it. Because how many people have seen this? That sucks, right? It's like, ooh, look, I have log files. I'm going to tell you right now, my ADHD prohibits me from reviewing more than 10 lines down in that log file, okay? But what if your logs look like that? This is ridiculously easy to do and makes a much more of an impact on you, okay? That's pretty straightforward, right? It's port scanning. Really common ports, right? 53, your Microsoft, maybe a remote database. It's like, okay, well, that's pretty simplistic. But this can be cut straight out of your network logs. And sometimes visualization can actually just help out. Again, here we have 3 targets, right? With 1 source. Like, okay, but how effective is that on a much bigger event? That pulls me up to this. This is actually the UPnP scan by HD Moore. Because I do record scans, and because I do log them, and then because I can feed them in and do a quick visualization, this is what's going to kill you guys. Has anyone figured out, anyone know what this is? This is Maltego. See, everyone thinks Maltego as an open source OSINT, right? That's what it's marketed as. What does it do? It draws relations between data and draws pictures. Okay, I suck at drawing pictures. I can't do a stick man, okay? But you would take your logs and with a real simple, just a few cuts here and there, bam. So HD Moore releases his UPnP results in February, March of earlier this year. Before he had released it, we were one of the few companies that had actually picked up the fact that he was doing the UPnP scans. The top there, which those are actually HD's machines that he was running the scans from. And those are all of my machines. And the next day, I sent them a nice email, said, hey, long-time fan, first-time emailer, love the Metasploit project.
First line target.
Yeah, would you, oh, I'm sure I'm not the first-time target. I said, would you mind not scanning my systems for a bit? I'm really busy and I could use a break. And he responded back. He was like, yeah, no problem. And he did. Now, Shodan has picked up the slack, and I have those games every day for UPnP. But the reason I like this is when I got a chance to sit down and attend HD's talk, he said very, very few people had detected it, let alone said anything about it. I would not have seen it if not for this. My logs are easily millions of lines every day. You get lost, the lines bleed into other lines, you don't see the relationships, you don't see that you have one system who scanned maybe 1,000 machines on one single port, when because of time and because of the mass amount of data you're dealing with, it's buried in there. So I find a quick visualization comes out of that. And so that's, like I said, I had no idea we were even being scanned by HD until I did this. And immediately this stood out and just kind of went, you know, ding, 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 you have a problem. So, and in general, it just makes it easier to read, okay? Those logs don't mean anything when you just look at them. You've got to be able to do something. It's got to be actionable. This helps draw that picture. So it can be something as goofy as this. I mean, I throw in timestamps, I throw in my source, my destination, and just what was the detection on the network. So, all right. For all the stuff on scanning, you can see a lot of these, watching for service scans, your FTP, DNS, all that. Just holding on to those logs. Now, I go down this path because I am going to tie this in towards the end. I'm going to show a couple of different things, and we're going to tie them all together just before we finish this off. So jumping gears, the big one, right? We're all worried about our users, right? There's certain key things about our users. Now, we would hope users don't have admin rights. You should understand they just want to go see kitties. You know, bull cats is awesome. And yes, I spend quite a few hours, well, my entire life, worrying about what my users are doing at the moment. At the same time, you gotta be nice to them, right? Without, what's the sysadmin with no users and no systems? Unemployed, okay? So, since they're not admins, this is one of the things that I noticed real fast working with system compromises. When you're looking at a system, you start seeing the patterns, and the patterns for infections almost all the time fall in the same areas. You see files being written to, accessed from pretty much your internet local temp, your app data local temp, and temporary internet files, right? Now, you make the point internet local temp and temporary internet files, pretty much the same thing. Vista versus Windows 7, you know, minor changes, things like that. Now, the reason for that obviously is when you are in the web browser, anything that happens obviously dumps to where the web browser reads and writes its data from, and internet local temp being one of the major ones. If you decide to run an application from the internet, but you don't download it completely, it will download to internet local temp and then execute out of temp. But that's also where hidden iframes, drive-bys, and everything else, they dump it all to that folder. So one of the things, like I said, we started noticing this right away, so I started monitoring for it. And right away, we started seeing results from it. Yeah. So what we did was just set up some simple HIPs rules, and or HIDs, both HIDs mostly for the detection, HIPs if you're going to try to prevent it. Let them run, and then every time they trigger, send that over to your logging solution. So now you have your network logs, and now you have programs executing out of internet local temp. You have those logs, all right? And like I said, we're going to throw all these things together before we leave here, and I'll show you why that's actually important. So exploiting systems, right? Pretty much, you know, we know that they're going to exploit our systems through our web browsers, Java, and anything Adobe's ever made. I bring that up because that's where you're going to find your exploits on your system. If they exploited Java, where do you find the malicious jars? In the cache, in the sun, and all that. If Adobe's getting popped, you find it in the Adobe trees. So by using app data, but then monitoring the different products, you can actually get a kind of a heads up as to what product was exploited based on what folder the trigger came from. So, indicators of compromise. This slide is hard to read on purpose, trust me. Indicators of compromise are essentially XML style sheets that have the key data in them. One of the things, again, right off, you start realizing is, if you notice the first one is the zero access, we have our win login, and we have the Trojan, right? You see it again there. If you look on the third line down, you'll see, I'm sorry, it's actually the second one, where you see local settings, application data, the temp again, and all users application data, okay? So what we do now is we started monitoring those areas, waiting for the triggers, and then we alert. So, does this work? Right? This is why everyone's here. This is part of it. Either that or it was a really good time. There were no seats left. You came to see me. Either way, I don't mind. Thank you. So, our user, right? Oh my God, what did you do that for? So, typical AV alerts, like log files, they suck to read, right? Who wants? You don't want to review that. So, in trying to make them easier to read and in trying to detect them faster, I found a neat little trick. So most people in here, if I did tell you you could detect malware way faster and without a signature, that's a bonus, right? I mean, I think that's pretty hot stuff. Well, here was my first stab at it. Ugly system log, right? Now, there is actually, this system was compromised. And one of the things that I keyed in on was all of the command tool access by a network-aware application. Should network-aware applications be accessing the command line? Your user may be, but even then, most users don't use command line. They flip out when you see a little bit red, black box, and you tell them, dude, you're going to type ipconfig. They go, not me, right? So in this case, why is command exe being called, or being accessed by explorer.exe, right? That's no bueno, that's no good. So I was like, okay, well, this is kind of handy. This is heading in the right direction. I'm getting notified. And in this case, we did actually find it was compromised, and then these were the applications that were on it. I don't know about you, but if I install, I don't know, Microsoft Messenger, I expect it to be called Microsoft Messenger.exe or something similar, not, yeah, you can't pronounce that, right? Not random letters. So I was like, okay, this is good. This is a head start. This is heading in the right direction. Well, then I started looking at some more of my alerts, and I started seeing a lot of these ActiveX loaders. But then I said, this has got to be a precursor to something. The system gets this ActiveX loader warning, and then, so what? Well, we started noticing 6 days later, right after this thing's happened, it's being picked up. So what this is that you're seeing is, so on the 5th, I get this alert about this ActiveX loader that was coming out, and either from Windows Explorer or Adobe or whatever. And then 6 days later, the thing sets off the AV alert as having a Java exploit on it. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. This is happening more than what could be happenstance. This is happening too often. I see an ActiveX loader, or I see an illegal API call, or I see this, and then that exact same system, just a little bit later, comes up as a virus alert. So I said, I wonder, I bet we can do some more digging. Okay? So, typical virus alert, right? Came out 30 April. PS, password stealing, right? Everything's cool, pretty generic, this is what we expect. Until we go back and look and see that at least 5 days beforehand, I had already picked this system up because we were monitoring we were using the HIDs on the system to monitor those local internet tabs, all that, monitoring the registry keys, and right in here you can see the SNK B00PT exe being added, and the registry keys for that executable, which were the ones that were marked out as being the actual executables for the PSW Trojan. So right away I was like, okay, slick. I'm now going beyond just saying, oh, this is odd, whatever. We're now getting to a point where we can now start detecting systems on the network that have been compromised or infected before the AV signature is even been released. And it makes sense because we're looking at what's going on in the system. We're not depending on this on this whole concept of, a signature. Signatures will always be a little bit behind because malware has to be detected, it has to be submitted, it has to be studied, the signature has to be written, the signature has to be QA'd, then it has to be released to the public. You have to download it, you have to QA it again before you deploy it to your environment or have every server not act right. You use happy products on occasion, right? So you test it, then you deploy it to your entire infrastructure, but then what do you have to do? Either catch it on an access scan or wait until Sunday when the system does a full system scan. By that point, you're now talking about 15, 20, maybe 30 days, and some malware will never be detected. So you're already behind the power curve before you even started. So if you are based off of a signature-only type activity, you're always going to be behind. You can't become proactive until you start monitoring and reacting to things that are without signatures. So, and because I like the pictures, okay, I had to diagram it. This is actually, there's timestamps on the connection lines. And what I'm actually able to do is I can see, like, say, the ActiveX loader, then, malware later, things like that. So, man, I'm sorry, my throat's dry. I probably should have an extra cup of water before I came up. So, this has worked in real life. Besides just the diagram, have I detected malware, on a system? Have we been able to react to it? Have we been able to actually, do some good? This is a cutout from one of our forensics investigations. The system was indeed popped. It was owned. We did full forensics on it. And one of the things that we found was they had used a renamed DLL, right? msgina.dll is the normal one. This was msgina.dll.a. The reason it's in here, if you look at semantic, the line for semantic, and you look for McAfee, none of them detected it during the time. So again, if you're dealing with a signature-based AV, you're going to be behind the power curve. This was only detectable because of us being proactive. This was another one. These were more of the files. Here they were labeled JPEGs. Because you're looking for executables and you're not hung up, say, on a file type, you're really looking at anything being either accessed or running out of temp. It doesn't matter if you see a JPEG. Of course, you're going to go, why is a JPEG being labeled as an executable? In this case, the malware was calling these JPEGs and using them for execution. And you can see only one of them was even picked up. It was picked up by Semantic, and even then, they didn't know what the heck it was. It just kind of was like, yeah, whatever. Okay. And again, like I said, all the rest of the files weren't picked up at all. We found all these. We were able to study them, look at what they did. And my favorite was a JPEG. It was actually a keylogger with HTTPM invasion. So it really wasn't a JPEG. It was execution. So obviously bad news there. And if we had waited for, again, like I said, if we waited for AV to find it, we'd still be waiting. So also, so moving on, we covered the scanning. We talked about the exploit. We see the traffic on the systems. And actually, I was going to say, last night I was talking to someone, and I realized we had a great way of explaining a lot of how these detections, how the monitoring and watching these systems work. And that's, you pop a box, it's like you punch someone in the face. Every time you punch someone in the face, it leaves a mark. Essentially what we want to do is find a mark. You pop a box, there's going to be a mark somewhere. I don't care how elite you are, because you have to change something on the box. So it's looking for that change. Like I said, something accessed out of the temp, out of whatever, an illegal API call, a buffer overflow. All those things cause errors on a system. When you're researching a buffer overflow, one of the first things they tell you, blue screen your box, because that's the idea. You want to crash it so that you then know what you have as far as room to play with. So yeah, you get punched in the face, you can leave a mark. That's what I'm looking for on these systems, is the mark. Now, you have to try to catch that early, because once they've established a foothold, then it becomes much harder, because they're no longer using their tools against you or exploiting something, right? Now you have to start tracking your own tools, right? I said before about networks, you get popped, they're not going to use some custom NCAT, CryptCat, super duper BNC, fire up Microsoft's RDP, and just start mixing it with regular traffic. Once that happens, there's still ways to pick it out. There's still things you can do. And visualization and having logs will come back and really help you in this. Realistically, should anyone see, okay, maybe you have really proactive Windows admins, but I don't. I do not see RDP connections at 3 a.m. from them fixing boxes. It doesn't happen. But if I see RDP at 3 a.m., go on to very select systems, and especially systems that recently triggered any kind of security alert, big red flag. Hey, this is an issue, you need to look at it. So obviously, your HIPs, HIDs, and sequencing those logs are really going to help. And then being able to draw the pictures to show. So, as a case in point, this is kind of a busy slide. And this is not just for one area. What this actually was this was a actual problem we had on our network. It was, the systems got, there was a few different actual areas to it. It was an APT of, we had malicious emails. From the email was a PDF attachment that was then ran, compromised the box. That box was then used to harvest credentials and then as a pivot to attack other boxes on our network. Now, it gets hard to follow when you're trying to timeline stuff, but because of having logs, because of using Altigo to draw the pictures and all of that, it makes it real easy to follow. Just for me, I know for the rest of you guys, you're like, what the hell? So up near the top, what you can actually see is our people that were emailed. Obviously, the names have been changed to protect the dumb. They executed something out of the email. Come on. But malicious PDF, and from there you can see the PDF attachment reached out, compromised certain IPs. At that point, one of the system administrators remoted into one of the infected machines, which was had a keylogger installed. Once he logged in, they harvested his credentials, and they then proceeded to act as him. So this was the actual compromised account here that they were able to harvest it when he remoted back to here, and then they then used his account to leverage out and attack the rest of the machines. So being able to do this, like I said, it's not super clear, but it's really easy to show an executive or show someone, this is the picture of what happened to you. Like how you have kind of taken over the barrel. Yeah, these are your people who opened the PDF. This was the payload for the PDF. This is what happened in the systems, and this was the compromise. And I do that because, again, the information has to be actionable. You need to be able to do something with what you see. For the longest time, a lot of what would go on in the network was reviewed by only a certain group of people. Your firewall people would only look at firewall alerts. Your IDS/IPS team would just look at IDS/IPS events. How many times has there been a phone call where someone says, oh, the world is ending, the sky is falling, there's, IIS exploits. Okay, we only have Apache web servers. I am not afeared what's going on. And it happens to really good companies too. Bruce Schneier had Counterping, and I can remember being drunk, very drunk, and getting called, like, oh, you have to head into work. I'm like, yeah, you understand, that's not an option. But you have back orifice raging on your network. Wait, back orifice on my network? Yeah, you're riddled with it. Really? Back orifice for 95 is all over my 2012 network. Maybe it's Cisco VPN. They use the same UDP traffic. And that's what it was. And I'm like, okay, listen, if you ever wake me up at 2 a.m. again for something as stupid as this, I'm going to curb stomp your face. Just to let you know. I'm going to pop your box, punch you in the face, and then leave a mark. So, and then the other one that, of course, I did want to hit a little bit, data exfiltration. Data exfiltration can be kind of tricky, right? What's the common stuff? Oh, hey, we'll bury it in a stream, we'll do whatever. Again, log files and log file visualization helps immensely. had a system. I was fairly confident, you know, it was owned. I was worried about data exfil. I said, oh man, what if this guy's like stealing stuff? What if we're just not seeing it? So I went ahead, went back to the logs, pulled all the IDS, IPS, network-based IDS, IPS, firewalls, and used Bro IDS, read through a bunch of stuff, visualized it, bam. What stands out immediately, this guy was a massive Tor user. And when we actually went back and started looking, it was some of our data in that Tor. He was using Tor to exfil data. So, you know, again, being able to visualize, you know, what you have on hand helps quite a bit. Covering tracks. This is a hard one, and you actually, if you're doing all of the stuff from before fairly well, you'll detect this because you won't have anything. Which I know sounds pretty dumb, but if they delete all their logs, guess what happens to your log analysis framework method of doing business? There's no effing logs to look at. And so that's actually the detection for this. So I would be like, yeah, you can graph it, but that would just be this slide in white. So, you know, that's how it works. So deleting logs, hiding logs, your tunnels. When you have a framework that's so focused around logs, the lack of logs is actually, like I said, that's what's going to keep you up. Now, I realized that I kind of gone through, you know, actually gone through fairly quick. There was some points that I wanted to cover. I realized I missed one. The DNS poisoning would have been back a few with the network portion. I do a lot of DNS poisoning, and I highly recommend that DNS poisoning gets added to your repertoire of tools. You're already looking for network-based, you know, detections. You're looking for the signatures that are coming across the wire. You're looking for possible host compromises. However, what do most people do when they find a bad domain? They may poison the DNS, right? Now, how many times have you seen the DNS gets poisoned to be 127.0.0.1, right? I feel you lose a lot of data if you do that. You don't see the three-way handshake, you don't see the URL that was requested, you don't see the ports necessarily. You just know that when this malware tries to execute, you tell it that its command and control channel is localhost, you get nothing. So one of the things that I have added, and it's one of the few things where I'm like, okay, let's get an additional tool, you can't really do it with what you have on your network, is an actual web server that doesn't matter what you ask of it, it gives you a status code 200. You say, hey, I want like the hot firefighter, you know, swimsuit calendar. It says 200. Like, you didn't give me anything. 200. No, seriously, I wanted like a recipe for like Velveeta. 200. No, give me a kitty. 200. Listen. All right, I do that on purpose. The idea is that when a system does get compromised, malware reaches out, you at least get more info. Like I said, if you may not know that there's a JPEG that gets downloaded and there's info in it that then gets added to this, that causes it to know which botnet, you know, controller to reach out to. But when you start intercepting all of those calls and then reverting them to your log files, you can actually add just that one more layer of detection, one more layer of see. But one word of warning, if you do take a system that responds to 200 to everything, let your vulnerability scanning team know, because your vulnerability scanner will cry and the person who reviews the report will be like, oh my God, there is a system on our network and it's vulnerable to everything. Wait, what do you mean it's vulnerable to everything? Like, what about the, no, it's vulnerable to everything. Yeah, I kind of forgot to tell the scan team, and it was a Monday. By Wednesday, they finally called me. They're like, "Look, this thing is so jacked up. You're the only person who could possibly be at, you know, to blame for this." And I was like, "Oh, I forgot what I did with that." Oh, cool, thanks. Yeah, they're like, no, this wasn't like a request of, oh, hey, by the way, we found the server. It was, get this damn thing off the network. And I had to explain to them what it was. What we do though is the logs from that server get added to the SIM, and so we get that. So again, it's that one more layer of now we have a network-based, you know, signature coming in. We know this system was targeted with something. Then we have the host IDS, the AV alerts, and the monitoring. And we see, oh, not only was it targeted by something, that's something executed and did XYZ on the system. And then we have corresponding network traffic for going out. Now we have a full picture of a system that's been compromised or possibly. Now you don't have these vague threats going to a system. You have no idea if anything happened at all. Or, not just big on network people, you don't have a system that suddenly, randomly starts issuing alerts. And you never know, like, well, nobody talks to this thing. It just sits on this network and does X, Y, Z. Well, you won't get that network data unless it's being stored on the system. And most people aren't storing that level of logs. So the only way to find and to do that is to correlate all of your logs from all your different sources, sequence them, timeline them, and then from there, like I said, AV becomes a non-issue. Who cares? You don't even have to really refer to your AV because you can just say, this attack targeted these 30 machines. Of those 30 machines, 15 exhibited the following behavior, and of those 15, these 15 had outgoing connections. You now, like I said, you know everything about that machine. AV finally, 3 weeks later, fires. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the heads up. I already knew. So, and then for the last one, because this is something that I put together, your mileage may vary of effectiveness. It works for me, might not work for you, so I thought this summed it up pretty nicely. You know, using this kind of system, trying to move down the log analysis, trying to implement this on your network, go one of two ways. So, like I said, mileage may vary. I've had pretty good luck with it. Hopefully, you know, like I said, take some of those system folders, think of ways you can monitor them on the network. Look at your SIM solution, see if you can't sequence those logs a better way. Monitor for a few different things that you may not have thought of to monitor. And like I said, the big thing is just mashing those things together, trying to get some good data out of it. And then of course, you know, there's people out there a hell of a lot smarter than me doing this stuff. Actually, I see him in the crowd. Mike's going to be talking about some stuff tomorrow. It's actually extremely eerie, the similarities. Like I said, my system is, I really try to say, hey, look, stop buying all this garbage. Don't buy fourth quadrant, don't buy magic quadrant, it doesn't matter. Because if you don't leverage it, it's doing nothing for you. You're going to buy someone a new boat, you're going to put someone's kid through college. That's fine and fantastic, but leverage the stuff you have. You're generating logs, review those logs, throw a simple visualization out of it, bam, you're golden. So that's it for me. Questions, comments, you suck, any of those, those are all mine. Oh, dude.
Do I have to be circumcised to use this tool?
No. Nice. No, like some of the guys like there have seen this before. I've done bits and pieces of it. I like to try to get usually a little bit more animated, but I'm trying really hard to stay behind the podium. So it has, you know, it's affected it a little bit. Come on, real question. Come on. Test me with this. Yes?
You said something about how you have millions of lines of logs coming in. What do you use to process that for the visualization?
I didn't throw it in here. Well, I'm sorry. I started talking before you finished. You said the visualization.
I was looking at the visualizations, they're nice, cute little visualizations. You pulled out all those billions of lines.
I love my visualizations. All right, let's see if I can do this. Because last time, so it's not ready for like prime time. I would like it to have been. I sat down and what I did, because you're exactly right. Now, I'm not going to show my desktop until I get to the cool spot because I don't want you to see like all my like total target stuff that I do and stuff like that.
All the inappropriate stuff on there.
Actually, you know how they say you can tell a lot by a guy by his toolbar? Apparently I'm very dull because the only thing on my system is like core impact and whatever. And that's not like saying, oh hey, everyone go out and buy core impact. I'm just saying like I'm one of the lucky few who got a key for my organization. Otherwise than that, that stuff's very generic. All right, so it means nothing much to you. This is my working folders that I walk out of. So most of my log files come in just like that. Hey, look at that. You all know my last name now. In case R6, wasn't enough. So this is what they'll come in as. You can see moderate sizes. Some can get pretty big, but obviously it's kind of hard to work with that. So what I actually do is I use I've got a couple of Python that I don't want to say scripts, but then again, if I say that they're actual programs, someone who does C will walk up and like punch me in the face. Apparently I'm very nervous about face punching, I don't know what it is.
It's worth being worse.
So what I did was, again, I told you that it has to be pretty actionable. I've got one script that will go through, it goes ahead and strips all of those zip files, it opens them up, and then pulls out the files, runs through, cleans them, and then splits them into these CSVs here. So what these are for me is I take all of the sequencing down, all those like millions, thousands, whatever. I split them into all the events per machine. So if you've got 20,000 machines on your network, if 20,000 machines fired off an alert, then they'll end up as one of these sub-CSVs. The Python script works pretty well, but if I release it to the public in its current state, I will be ridiculed on Twitter nonstop because I'm like the worst Python person ever. But I can parse over 10 gigs of it without memory errors due to a nice trick. I love this community. You tell someone you're having a problem and they're like, oh, I fixed that, I just did X, Y, Z, and you're like, oh, and I don't even know your real name, so I don't even have to give you credit. Rock on. I had a guy who told me about X read lines, and that's how I avoid the memory issue, where so it won't blow up on me. I use X read lines. It'll parse through everything just fine. And so, like I said, I take all those log files. I've got them in a moderate order that I can depend on, the columns. And what I do is just go ahead and I split them, and I take all of the system names, throw them into a set. I mean, Python's fantastic for that. I take all of the network detection, all the signatures that were fired, throw those into a set. Take all the user accounts, throw them into another set. The reason I do sets, there's no sorting involved. Sets only hold unique values. So originally I used to try to sort the values and grab unique and do all this stuff. And my script would take like 9 hours to run. I was like, oh, wait, that's stupid. Why don't I just throw them all into a set and let algebra take its course? So I throw everything into a set, and then I just enumerate through the set. I create one CSV for every machine, one CSV for every user, and one CSV for every network signature. And then I just read through and I just parse the heck out of it. Because you only have about 100 network signatures that are unique, I can then query the 10 gig log file for just those threat signatures. I write them out. But then I found that if you search the same way with machines, it'll take 8 hours to run. So instead, after that point, what I do is I take and reopen the log file, and then I take the line, and I split that line to the corresponding machine CSV and user CSV. And then once it's done, I'll open the threat CSVs. I'll see GearSnip, ActiveX loader, whatever. I'll grab the ActiveX loader, I'll throw it up, and just take a quick peek at it. Maybe throw it into Maltego. And once I know all the machines that fired for, say, ActiveX, I'll go back into that, pull out the machine's CSV, and see everything that machine has triggered for the last, like, say, 30, 60, or 90 days. I'll see all of its virus scan info, ActiveX loader info, all those different things. I go ahead, look at the total machine, and that's what I'll throw into Maltego. And sometimes you gotta pare it down. A lot of those Maltegos are really actually just cuts. What I do is I throw everything into Maltego, go to the event, or I'm sorry, the third tab. Blows my mind in a second. The entity list, and then I'll pull out, say, a system that I'm pretty confident has been compromised. Right-click, export it to a new map with all of its child, dependencies, maybe 3 or 4 down. Let Maltego do it for you. I mean, like, if Maltego can harvest Facebook tie-ins for CEOs, it can totally visualize the log file. And I don't even think the Turbine knows I'm doing it with it. They probably just think I'm like some random person who bought a Maltego server because I'm like really like Maltego. No, actually, I have a Maltego server to eat my log files because it doesn't better than say Splunk. Or I love Splunk, but it doesn't visualize it. It shows me patterns. It shows me how many beaconing events happen, but it doesn't draw the picture. I like the pictures. Also, I'm very easily entertained. So that was pretty much everything I had said. I should have hit Maltego, how I parse the logs. I really wish I could change. I'll share my script with you. There's no secret sauce to it. You just can't blast me on Twitter for being the worst Python script you've ever seen. Okay, that's my only caveat to that. Anyone else? Another good question? All right, cool. I'll step down, turn this over to someone else. I'm sure next. I'm sure we'll tell them. So, if you do have any follow-up, or if you're just curious in general, Twitter, I'm Renegade6. Whatever. I only have like 56 followers, so if I suddenly go to 57, I'll know it's one of you guys.